Hey son, can I talk to you for a minute? Sure, what is it, Dad? Well, I was thinking, maybe you'd want to try an old video game that I used to like when I was a little guy. Okay, that sounds fun. This game sucks. I hate it. I hate you. I wish I had a dad who didn't give me crappy old games to try. Ah, fiddlesticks. Hey there, how you doing? I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today. Everyone loves kids, right? Yeah, they're pretty great. They're like little adults that talk weird and don't understand the world and aren't secretly judging your life choices or terrible haircut. They also have great ideas. This one little boogery kid I know told me I should start a YouTube channel. And I did. And he doesn't watch it. So, yeah, thanks for the suggestion there, booger. But as good as kids are at lots of stuff like hide and seek and making abstract art and pooping their pants, they seriously suck at appreciating the finest of the finer things in life. Retro games. And I know you probably want to share these games that you grew up with the kiddos in your life, but if you've ever shoved a controller or a retro handheld into the hands of a kid and said, "Here, little guy, play this game. It's called Contra. You'll love it," you probably found that 2 minutes later they were either off eating Play-Doh again or hiding under their bed crying. And that's why I'm here to help you out today. What makes me qualified to give you advice about what your kids' gaming habits should be? Well, apart from the fact that I've spent a lot of time with kids, I'm basically a child trapped in a 40-something-year-old man's body, so I have special insight into the gaming needs of kiddos. And here's what I've learned about giving retro games to kids. They are terrible at old video games. Give a kid an iPad app and he'll be tapping and swiping all the livelong day. But give them a D-pad and face buttons and they'll make you hang your head in shame that your loins spawned such a noob. That's because kids need to be eased into retro games. They need to learn how to use physical controls, have some successes with early games, and most importantly, they need to learn that games are fun before they have the buy-in to practice Super Mario World speedruns or whatever.
Did you really enjoy playing this?
There's this one weird thing with kids though. They're all different. Some of them are small, some of them are kind of medium-sized, and some of them are actually pretty big and strong and give wicked noogies to me on the bus while their parents laugh at me when I beg them to stop. So the types of retro games that a tiny little guy in diapers would like are different from the kinds of games a big guy in big boy pants would like. So we're gonna do this in the order of age, I guess. The first games I tell you about are going to be kind of simpler games that younger kiddos would like. And as we move up the list, we'll get older and older until we're in the preteen territory, right before the hormone apocalypse. Good luck with that. Which brings us to our first game, Spyro the Dragon on PS1. You could also swap in Super Mario 64 here, but I think Spyro is the better choice because it's a bit less finicky with the controls and also the early game is more forgiving. The experience of a kid trying Spyro for the first time is, oh look, there's a fun cutscene like a cartoon, let's watch this. And then you're a freaking dragon in this colorful magical world. The starting area is a great place to practice just moving your character with an analog stick or D-pad. Once they've mastered that, they can try pressing some of the buttons. One button breathes fire, one button is a charge attack, one button jumps, and you can hold it to glide around. These are all simple skills that even the youngest of the booger-faced kiddos can master. And once they've done that and are ready for a challenge, you can take them to the first actual level and let them unleash their newfound skills. The first level is hella easy and the difficulty ramps up slowly so they can just kind of learn as they go. Also, there's 3 Spyro games on the PS1, so if they ever get too far in the game and they hit a difficulty spike and they can't get past it, just start up the next one in the series and they'll feel like a superhero in the starting areas as if they know what the heck they're doing.
Watch the dragonfly, Spyro. His color indicates his power. When he eats butterflies, he stays strong.
If you saw my co-op retro games for couples video, you know that I'm a big fan of playing arcade games for a stress-free experience. Because if you're playing via emulation, infinite quarters, baby. No need to worry about lives or continues. You just keep on feeding the imaginary machine those quarters and you can keep on playing forever, no matter how bad you suck. Plus, pushing the coin button makes a fun sound that you definitely won't want to pull your hair out hearing for the 900th time as your kid spams the button. Any arcade beat 'em up is perfect for this, but here's a few of my top picks. Bucky O'Hare is one of the best for this because it's bright and colorful and it looks like a Saturday morning cartoon. Are there even still Saturday morning cartoons? Is it all just streaming now? I don't know. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time is an all-time classic. Everyone loves Ninja Turtles, and if your kiddo doesn't even know about the Ninja Turtles yet, you might as well introduce them to the bros by playing the best Ninja Turtles game ever made. And this one here is definitely the wackiest of the bunch. This is Battle Circuit, and it's completely over the top, with 5 super unique characters and a ton of just weird and zany enemies to smash up all over the place all the time. Racing games are usually a pretty safe bet for a kid, but they need to be a little bit older than like very young, because they can also be frustrating if you don't understand the very basics of driving a vehicle, like when you drive straight into a wall and you can't figure out why your car isn't moving anymore. You gotta stay on the track, little buddy. If they're old enough to do that, kart racers are an amazing choice. You could go with Mario Kart 64 or Crash Team Racing on the PS1, but I think this is a good chance to give them something a bit more primitive. I chose Super Mario Kart Super Circuit for the Game Boy Advance for this, because it's got that classic, easy, zany, approachable Mario Kart action, but done in that classic Mode 7 retro art style. It's easy to control, not too frustrating, and there's a ton of familiar Mario Universe characters to pick from, and there's a ton of variety in the levels. They won't be good at the game, but this is the kind of game where it's okay to come in last place. The game doesn't punish you or hold you back for sucking. Good for sucky adults too, actually. Once the novelty of playing a game that has no color wears off, the kiddo in your life will appreciate Kirby's Dream Land on the Game Boy for other reasons. Most of all, the chill, cute, happy vibe of the game and the world. It's like the game equivalent of a soft, bouncy pillow that doesn't hurt when you face plant into it. This is an incredibly simple platformer with no real consequence for sucking at it, which, let's be honest, is probably going to happen at first, more or less depending on the age of your kiddo. The controls are super easy, even for tiny hands, and all you do is jump and inhale enemies and then, float around like a squishy little bubble. And it's also totally adorable. The game's charming and simple, and it doesn't have the frustration of harder platformers that make kids start screaming and make your retro handheld in danger of being thrown across the room. Plus, it's Kirby. If there's one thing that kids can immediately identify, it's that this little flubby squish ball is pure joy. They might not make it to the final boss on their first try, but they'll probably have a blast inhaling everything in sight in the early levels until they get good enough to progress. Buzz Lightyear of Star Command on the PS1 has serious Crash Bandicoot vibes, but it's easier than Crash and more forgiving, and the gameplay is a bit more flashy and fun. Plus, it's Buzz Lightyear, and even if your kid hasn't seen any of those movies, it's fun to see a spaceman fighting aliens. As you can see, this is a simple action platformer where you run and jump and shoot your way through the levels while trying to save the galaxy from evil, obviously. The controls are straightforward enough that even a 5-year-old could pick it up, although they might not fully grasp the gravity of saving the universe. The graphics are definitely 2000s level PS1, but that's part of its charm. Lots of level variety too, so the visuals get changed up on a regular basis to keep those fickle eyeballs glued to the screen. This one isn't hard, but it's not going to be great for super young kids. This is perfect for any kid who's at that Nerf gun stage of life. I'm pretty sure that kids of any age could enjoy Fantasy Zone. This game is so colorful and over the top. It's like a candy-coated fever dream. I guarantee if you show this to a kid, their eyes will light up and they will instantly smile when they start wiggling the wiggle stick and controlling this little jelly bean of a spaceship. The smile might fade once they die, and they will die very quickly. So that's why I recommend playing either the arcade version where you have infinite quarters, or play the Master System or Mega Drive version with the infinite life cheat on so that they can die 1,000 deaths and not stress it. Actually, that goes for most games. Very often, retro games are hard only because you have limited lives. Adding cheats can make even the hardest retro games feel like chill, stress-free experiences. Fantasy Zone has lots to see, lots of levels and weird bosses, and it's a great lighthearted introduction to shoot-'em-up games as a genre. Okay, hear me out. I know you want to give your kid the gift of Super Mario Bros. Or Super Mario World because that's what you grew up playing, but you gotta trust me, those are not entry-level retro games for kids. They are too hard for novice fingers to make any headway in. Definitely do give those games to kids who have a bit more gaming experience, but if you want to give them a foot in the door to Nintendo platformers, go with Wario Land on the Game Boy. It's a much more accessible game. It's got the same tight mechanics of a Mario game, but with a lot less focus on precision platforming, and it's just generally more forgiving. I say go back to the original Game Boy version, but if you want to add a splash of color, you can go for the Game Boy Color games or even the Game Boy Advance one. They're all the same general gameplay style, but I think going back all the way to the original Game Boy version is a great way to build up some appreciation for the true classic era of retro games without the mountain of frustration that comes from something like the first Mario Land on the Game Boy. Puzzle games are great for a certain kind of kid, and not great for other kinds. I'm not saying your kid isn't smart if they can't handle Puyo Puyo. I'm just saying that maybe their wimpy friend who's really good at Puyo Puyo might be more likely to have a successful startup later in life. The gameplay of this is super simple. It's a falling brick game, similar to Dr. Mario if you're familiar with that. Bricks of two colors falling and you line them up to create clusters of the same color. There are a jungle of Puyo games out there, but I think a great one to play for the retro vibes is Puyo Pop on the Game Boy Advance. It's bright and colorful and the pixel art is charming. This one lacks some of the other modes that exist in some of the other Puyo games, but it does have the story mode, which I think is a nice hook for a kiddo to see some cute characters talking and little cutscenes. You can't go wrong with any version though. The gameplay is the kind of thing that is simple to understand and it starts out easy, but you get better as you play, and it has that addictive loop that only a good puzzle game can give you. Rayman 2: The Great Escape is a mascot platformer from the Dreamcast, and it's one of my favorite 3D platformers. This one's also on the N64 and the PS1 and the PC and Nintendo DS and a few others. It's great for kids because, like any good mascot platformer, it starts easy with very few dangers in the first area or level, and it gradually increases the difficulty as you progress until it's hard enough to stop you from blowing through the game without much effort. This one is later in the list because this game does get really hard. It's not super punishing or anything. You can always start back at the beginning of the area that you're in if you die, and there's a pretty generous health bar, but even for me, an experienced 40-something-year-old gamer, this game is kicking my butt. The thing that really pulls you through this game is the gorgeous, adorable art style, the fun, quirky humor, and most importantly, the clever, interesting level design and gameplay that's always changing stuff up. Plus, Rayman is one of those mascots from the 90s that tried so hard to be cool and appealing to kids. They succeeded to some degree. He is cool. Kids love this little guy. And finally, this one is not for wimpy kids who can't handle some action. Some kiddos like a nice, chill, laid-back, stress-free experience, but as they get older and the hormones start kicking in and they get a little bit of the bloodlust going, maybe consider giving them something a bit more competitive that they can rage out on. Arcade sports games are great for this, and there are a lot of good options, but Windjammers on the NEO-GEO is like next level. There's not much to it. It is so simple. It's basically a mixture of ping pong, air hockey, and frisbee. Two champions face off in a closed arena. You throw a disc and it can bounce off the walls. You need to get it into the net and they need to block it, but you'll quickly learn that there's a lot more to it because there's like a bunch of extra special power moves that you can do in specific circumstances. This is one of my favorite competitive action games. I've played it a ton and I have a blast every time I play it. And I've never met anyone who didn't have fun playing this, kids included.
3 points.
And that's it. That's a heck ton of games that I can think of that kids of all ages will enjoy. I hope you shove these games in your kiddos' faces and force them to appreciate the history of gaming, to learn what early games were like, and that while they might not have dance emotes that cost $5 of your parents' money, they're still totally fun and worth playing. As I was preparing for this video, I actually ended up with a massive list of games that I wanted to share, but I had to scrape it down to just 10, so the video wouldn't be super long. But that means that, yeah, you guessed it, there's gonna be more videos like this coming along soon. So get subscribed if you haven't yet so you don't miss those. And if you have other games to suggest that are good for kids, leave them in the comments below for the other parents and cool aunts and uncles to check out. And while you're down there, you might as well click the thumbs up button if you like the video, or don't if you didn't. That's it from me. I'm TechDweeb, thanks for watching, bye bye.